Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan episode review. This one's going to be for Season 3, Episode 11, which is called Bystander. And yeah, I thought this was a pretty good episode. Maybe not as revealing as some of the others, but I think that was kind of partly the point of just presenting information about Grisha from someone who didn't really know much about the, I suppose, deeper secrets of him. Obviously, Keith Shadis is revealed to be the main character here, who was the character Eren saw in his visions, and they go to him to ask what he knew about Grisha, and he knows some stuff, but obviously him not knowing about all the Titan stuff, why he was outside the walls in the first place, is presented in this way of just like, oh, well, I found this guy outside the walls, he didn't seem to know anything, I brought him back in, he turned out to be very special in terms of saving everyone from this plague, and there was something very, very like unique and special about him. He was a chosen one, basically, and I like that it was not just Keith Shadis talking about Grisha. It was also about himself as well, that we got characterization for the guy we previously knew as really only the guy who trained like Eren and the rest of that kind of was it the 104th? Eren and the rest of his kind of squad mates, basically. And here we get that, okay, I think we'd roughly known this before, but that, Keith Shadis was actually the commander of the scouts before Erwin. And that was interesting just to get that by itself of like, basically like Shadis before he met Grisha was just kind of going along with things, being a scout. He had that desire to, of course, do stuff outside the walls and, find more freedom outside of the walls. That's the whole, philosophy of the scouts, basically. But like, Grisha kind of talking about the idea of like, the scouts are the really special ones, and he kind of thought that, I could be someone special. If I ever become commander, I will really push forward. But when that happens, it just leads to basically, in his mind, I suppose, him getting more and more people killed, and him coming to realize he is not as good as so many other people. He potentially isn't someone special, and him realizing that like Grisha is special. He has people under his command who are special, and they specifically show Levi, Hanji, and Erwin, and other characters in the background kind of mention that, like, like Shadis just keeps charging in and getting people killed. What about Erwin? No one on his squad has died yet, and we see him basically handing over command to Erwin. So that explains how he came into command, that he was always a somewhat high up member of the scouts, but then just him tactically being so good, not having anyone in the squad get killed, that's what led to it happening. That was cool. And then, yeah, I suppose the stuff with Grisha, him not really remembering much outside of the fact that he's a doctor, he knows his name, and that's about it. He does ask, like, you're fighting out here, as if like he's really, really shocked to hear that, but he obviously doesn't really remember where he's from. I suppose the idea that we're meant to have is that Grisha is probably from where Reiner and Bertolt and Ymir, the city that she was in before she was thrown out as a Titan, where they came from, which we don't have a lot of information on yet, but it's that other place, that other kind of country in the world. I assume that's where Grisha is meant to be from. Of course, the big thing is that we know he's a Titan shifter, otherwise Eren wouldn't be a Titan shifter now if not for that. He obviously had enough knowledge that he had the Titan serum to be able to transform Eren like he did. So there's obviously much more information on Grisha that we need, and that's clearly what the attack on Shiganshina and going down to the basement is going to be about. So just the setup on that seems really, really solid, of like, we got that big information about Grisha is the one who turned Eren into a Titan, and Eren eating Grisha is what made him a Titan shifter. Now we know, like, here's the basic idea of how Grisha kind of got inside the walls and what he did. Now we need to, I suppose, know about his life before that, and the stuff that Keith Chattis wasn't really aware of. Because I think the most notable thing towards the end of the episode is that after they hear about Carla being killed, we see basically Grisha taking Eren out to where, of course, the transformation sequence happens, the bit that we actually saw, and he tells Shadis not to follow, but he ends up following, and all he finds, of course, is just Eren there. And that explains how Eren got back into, I suppose, the city, got back involved with everyone after that whole thing happened. Because when you watch the first couple of episodes of Attack on Titan again, you do notice that they have some pretty large time skips in between certain moments where just Eren's here and then it's like, oh, he's talked with his dad, but it was like off screen, and now he has this key. Like, there's definitely some kind of odd moments, but this kind of helps to bring a lot of that together. And yeah, we of course see Carla and Grisha get married. We see young Eren, and I suppose they sort of present something interesting of like the friendship between Carla and Keith Shadis, just with regards to, again, the whole being special, not special thing, and him always feeling that like he potentially could be special, then realizing he wasn't and kind of freaking out about it, but her kind of turning the tables of saying that it doesn't matter if you're special or not, because I suppose for depending on your situation, someone's going to consider you special, that in a way everyone who's born is special in their own way, and just a kind of very optimistic view on things, not really trying to present more of a thing where, like, you know, you don't need, like, there's no room for people who truly are great, but you know, just not having such a negative view on it, I suppose. And the whole thing of, like, in a way that's kind of what Eren's been dealing with a lot in like the last season or two, of like, is he meant to be this kind of hero character or not, and how half of him is like, yes, I can do all this, but then half of him is being kind of, I suppose, pulled back by some of the failures he's had. And I suppose what they're trying to get at is that, you know, he is important, but like there's something to be gained from not, I suppose, overly thinking yourself that important. So he has to find that balance. I suppose we'll deal with that as we go forward. Because like some of the earlier talks in the episode were about like Historia and Eren talking, and I think she mentions like, what would you do if you had to fight Bertolt and Reiner again, and that being like the big thing. Similarly, I suppose, I think in one of my previous reviews I mentioned that like I'm definitely leaning more towards, if a romance is to happen, it's probably Eren and Historia rather than Eren and Mikasa. And I think the scene between them here made it clear. And then I think Jean mentioned it later on in the episode that like if you'd stop holding hands with Historia for a second, maybe you'd get more done. So very clearly they're setting up that those two actually have a pretty good relationship, and that Eren seems to really respect a lot of Historia's choices, and Historia can, I suppose, respect the sacrifices that Eren is making with himself to make things happen for humanity. And you saw that in how they made the new Titan weapon that's like semi-automatic. That's a way, like, when a Titan puts his head into it, they can just activate it and it kills it immediately. And that's all possible only because of Eren's Titan hardening abilities. But it seems like anytime he uses it too much, he really drains his energy and kind of puts himself at risk. So that's, I suppose, something to note. And yeah, I suppose like just seeing that, like, I think they basically say it's like 2 months since Historia's been queen, and she's putting a lot of effort into looking after the, I suppose, orphans after all of the deaths involved in a lot of these incidents, and how Levi ended up kind of really heavily backing Historia on this because of the way he grew up. And it's sort of like the big project is just looking after, I suppose, the next generation that potentially doesn't have parents anymore. So just getting across that Historia is actually doing some really good stuff as queen, and it's not just that she's sort of been put in place as like a figurehead type thing. She's actually making stuff happen, and she's kind of allowed to make decisions sort of on her own, and is turning out to be a very good queen. So that's a success in terms of the whole coup d'etat and it actually working. So everything seems to be going well right now, but we're obviously preparing for the big attack on Shiganshina and how that's going to play out, and that this is going to be a personal thing for Eren, but also a big testing moment for him in terms of, like, we already know that Reiner, Bertolt, and the Beast Titan are there, so can this attack defeat those three on their own? We don't actually know, so that's going to be very interesting to see. We're obviously setting up for some really big attacks coming. Even just, I suppose, getting out there, I suppose, will be some battles with Titans along the way. But I think where we're at right now, that's not going to be too big of a problem. I think the problem is probably going to be when they get there. It's definitely going to be a case where I suppose the Beast Titan is able to control Titans to a degree, so he's going to be getting a large army of Titans on his side, and like we know there's a lot of skilled Titan kind of hunters at this point in the series, but will it be an even enough match? Because we have Eren, but like it's him on his own basically for the most part against three Titan shifters, and really of the skilled fighters, only Levi and Mikasa you would say would be able to actually go one-on-one with any of those Titans, and especially with the Colossal Titan and I suppose the special abilities that it has and how difficult Reiner is to actually damage, plus the sort of unknown nature of the Beast Titan. Like, there's a lot on the line here that this is going to be a very, very tough battle, but I suppose they'll have some new technology we don't quite know about just yet that's going to come into play. But overall, good episode. I suppose one final thing, they did make another note of with the meeting with Keith Shadis, as well as the sort of new recruits that are sort of kind of part of the Scouting Legion now. The difference between the scouts that have been there basically since the start of the series versus the new people, and even though they were all kind of trained together, a lot of the 104th squad, I suppose, that is now switching over are kind of in a way taken aback by the how veteran, I suppose, a lot of the other characters have become in such a short time, that their experiences have really morphed them into really experienced soldiers, and just them noting that something's changed about you. What is it? And they're like, wait, actually no, we shouldn't ask about that. And we of course know everything they've been through, and that's why there's the difference between being sort of prepared for the upcoming battle but being aware that people are going to die, versus we've had some success, we're going to win this one, no problem. Jean, Sasha, and so on, they have the right attitude going into this battle. Some of the others perhaps don't. But that's been the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.